warm welcome to our online viewers. Today's theme is living without regret. Very interesting topic. And today's one is especially for in view of the Suicide Prevention Day. The speaker she will more talk healing talk will take us through the simply daily tips for different form of self-care. And for that we have our speaker Dr. Kala Mistry with us. And she works in the community mental health and has been studying Raj Yoga meditation since 1992. So she's a very experienced meditator. And also she conducts spiritual and self-development workshops for health professionals and the general public on the themes of self-empowerment and values. So please welcome Dr. Kala. Thank you.
Just going to take a seat. Yeah. So I think we're being webcast. So good evening. Good evening to the people in the room and to everyone watching online. Yep. Okay. Thank you. So today's topic. I don't know if you've come specifically for the topic, but the topic is living without regret. I think it's a topic that maybe most people think about. It's not a topic that only some people have regrets. Most people in life do something that they feel a little bit of regret about, a little bit of a sense that they wish they hadn't done that or they wish they'd done it differently. And so what I've done is I've prepared a PowerPoint that will help us to just look at some of the key areas of living without regret. And in this talk, I'm going to ask you to use a checklist. And what I'd like you to do, which you can do in a minute, is actually read through the checklist and tick off if you've had any of those thoughts or experiences in the last week or two. Okay? Very important just to think about the last couple of weeks, because it helps to highlight whether, how important the whole concept of regret is. Do you want to take a checklist and a pencil or a pen? So if you're watching online, please do have a pencil and a piece of paper ready. And I have sort of got an idea of the numbering, and it would be quite good if you could do this along with the rest of us here. So, living without regrets. So today I'm going to be showing you some pictures. And the first set of pictures are these. There's a lot of pictures here, aren't there? But I hope you can see that when you have a look at these pictures, you have some idea of what it might feel like to have regret. So there's a picture of a man with his hands, his head in his hands, like, oh no, wish I hadn't done that, or something like, oh no, it's all too much for me, or something like that. You can think of your own, exclamation to what he's doing there. And then next to him, we've got this kind of cartoon, kind of animation character. And what's he doing? Anyone? What's the amber? Banging his head against the wall, yeah. And, which is, people use that terminology quite a lot, just to mean that, what does banging your head against the wall mean? It means you're trying to do something again and again. It feels like you're not getting anywhere. So it could be communication. It could be something you're trying to achieve. But again, the concept of something that is difficult to achieve and it makes you feel some kind of feeling like regret. So that's that one. And at the top of this slide, I have put a definition of regret. So regret is self-blame over making the wrong choice. And the word wrong is in quotation marks. And what's this man here doing? This kind of, again, cartoon character man with a tie. Okay, you think he's crying, yeah. Does anyone think anything else? Frustration, yeah. Absolutely, he could even be really angry, couldn't he? Sort of, and those drops might not be tears, they might be like, you know, signs of him getting very, very angry. So crying or anger, and, you know, we've got a couple of slides here. There's a lady, she's actually got her hand over her eyes, which again is a common kind of posture we take when we regret something, like, oh, did I really just see that? Or, you know, something like that. And another little cartoon character with the word sorry, and somebody who's obviously trying to make amends. They've written, I'm sorry, and they're offering it in their hands. Sort of very nice gesture, isn't it? And then also, I found a picture of a bear. Can you see what the bear's doing? It's a big brown bear. And maybe it's not 100% clear because of lighting, but he has his head in the sand and his paws in front of him. So even the animal world regrets things sometimes. And basically at the end of this slide, how do you feel when you see a slide like this with these images? Do you feel you recognize it? Does it make you laugh? Does it, you know, make you think this is familiar? This is something I've seen before. And, you know, literally regret could be because you've made a wrong decision or made a wrong move somewhere, but it could just be self-blame over making any choice at all. And, you know, you can see that when the pandemic happened, lots of people might have been making lots of good choices, but suddenly it might not have been a good choice anymore, you know, because the world changed so quickly. So many things changed. So there's sometimes it's not that what has happened is wrong or incorrect. It's simply that you've made a decision, you've made a choice, and you have that feeling of blaming yourself for having done it that way. Now, I think most people experience regret, and I'm not sure that it's possible to live life completely without regret. And so I'm going to now invite everybody in the room and also online to get out their piece of paper. I'd just like you to go through the checklist. And the checklist is almost exactly the same as what's on the wall behind me here. But basically, the checklist is, I'm going to read it out for the people online. And what I'd like you to do is just read the top sentence. Regret for the things we did can be tempered by time, but it is regret for the things we did not do that is inconsolable. And just keeping that in mind, regret can be both things we've done and things we've not done. And I'd like you to just put a tick, that's all you have to do, if you identify with any of the statements on your sheet, which are also on there. There's only one sentence missing from the webcast slides, and I will just mention that out loud in a moment. So if we go through it together, I find myself remembering things that I didn't do. Is it familiar? You put a little tick, yep. And if you're not sure, just put a question mark. I find myself thinking about things I wanted to do in the past. Yeah? So I think that's quite a common one as well. There's lots of things that people wish they'd done when they were younger, as children, or other things as well. I find myself sad due to not having a specific experience. So this could be not going somewhere, not agreeing to something. So it could be something special. It could be something like agreeing to learn swimming, you know, or play a game, or something. It could be anything. Okay. And so have a think about that. I find myself, now this is a bit more kind of specialist, I find myself having repetitive thoughts. So that would be about the same topic. Do you have repeating thoughts about the same thing? If you do, put 2 ticks next to that one, because that's probably quite a strong indicator of regrets when the thoughts come back again and again. And here's a question for you to answer in your own words. Is there something I have forgotten that I keep remembering the same thought? So just for a moment, I'm going to ask you to just go silent and just think, if there is a thought that you have and it repeats itself, did you forget something? Was there something behind that thought that you'd forgotten to think about or acknowledge? And I myself find that when I go home, or, you know, even sometimes when I'm at work, I'll keep remembering the same person or the same, it's usually a person, but it could be the same event. And, you know, why am I remembering them? Until I find the root cause, as in I haven't told someone about this person, or maybe I've forgotten to, maybe I said something to that person, I've forgotten to let, you know, send something in the post to them, or something like that, you know, some information, or perhaps there's something really important that we need to do before we offer them treatment, or anything like that, then that will keep, something will niggle in the back of my mind. Because, you know, most of the time, I think we try to, well, I certainly try to do things as I go along so that I don't forget later on. Because it's very easy to forget things, isn't it? But if you do it straight away, it's easier. But when you're busy, you can't do everything straight away. And then a certain image or a picture might come into your mind again and again until you've dealt with it. And I think for me, it's often something like if you haven't thanked someone for something, or you haven't apologized for something. Maybe you said something that was going to be hurtful and you didn't think it was hurtful at the time. And then afterwards you thought, oh, I really wish I hadn't said that. I wish I must apologize, or I must say something else to that person. Then that person or that image will come into your mind until you have an opportunity to sort that out. Do you find something similar like that? Yeah? So that might be for some people. So in your own words, write down if you have some memory or a thought like that, or an image in your mind. I think at one point in my life, I would remember something someone had told me because it made such a strong impression in my mind. But I afterwards, after seeing it again and again, and when I saw the context that they were talking about, I remember thinking, do you know what? I think I need to change the way I heard that sentence, because the way that I was being informed something wasn't correct, and that's why it stuck in my mind, because something's not quite right. What one person said and what I experienced are two different things. And as soon as I see that person, I think, no, it can't be like that. I must remove the thought from my mind, otherwise I will hold that thought about that person. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's very easy to pick up sometimes slightly negative or slightly judgmental or skewed ideas from other people. And these can play in our mind because it's not really who you want to be. It's not who you want to be. And then the rest of the question, so that's going up to 5 points. And on the slide, I think it's literally up to here. So now these are very short sentences. So just have a think. Do you feel, in the last few days, did you feel resentment? If you don't feel it, that's fine. Just put a little 0. And if you do, if you feel it was quite strong, you can remember it right now, just put a little tick. I feel unheard. That could be something that you've experienced in the last few days, in which case put a little tick. I feel frustration. We talked about that earlier, didn't we, with the pictures of that man. I feel angry. So I think when we have a regret about something, we can feel very, very angry. We can feel angry with ourselves, or we can feel angry with other people. And it can just switch from self-blame, self-anger to outside. It can go backwards and forwards like that. And I think that's why regret is such a powerful phrase, it's such a powerful word. Feeling regret is such a powerful phrase. And then lastly, I want to add something at the bottom there, which is I feel disappointment. And I think disappointment is probably the mildest emotion or feeling you can have about something that you regret that had happened, or that you did, or that someone else did. I feel disappointment. So if something doesn't work out the way I'm hoping it would, and I really thought someone was going to do something, play their part better than that, then I will feel disappointment. And that to me is a mild regret. I'm almost blaming myself. I'm actually blaming them because I'm disappointed. But then there's a part of me that's realizing that maybe I put too much expectation on that person. Maybe I'm expecting them to live up to my idea of what's good, or what's, helpful, courageous, benevolent, or what's right. So words like right and wrong often kind of come into things like regret. So what I would probably say is, if you have more than about 3 ticks, you're feeling a degree of regret in your life right now. And if you are very lucky and you don't have any ticks at all, congratulations. You must be a particular kind of personality, because I've been reading online, and I've been looking at various things, which I'm going to kind of flag up with you right now. And it seems that some people have a certain approach to their life, and their approach is such that they don't really feel regrets, So they see life as maybe a game, or maybe just something for them to engage with. And if it's good, that's great, And if it doesn't work out, well, it's okay. It's just experience, carry on. No need to harm, to hurt yourself. No need to blame yourself. No need to think anything negative. But and I think that's possible for us to do that when it's little things in life. Like, for example, if you're cooking and you need to put a bit of salt in, and you think, I'll take a shortcut, instead of taking the spoon out and putting the salt in with a spoon, maybe you think you just put a little bit in like this. Have you ever tried to do that? And what happened? Did you get a bit more than you expected in there? And then you've got to eat this really salty food, haven't you, for that evening? Or how are you going to deal with that, okay? So that's just a minor thing, isn't it? You have to forgive yourself for that, and you have to make amends. You have to make it come right. So you might add tomato or yogurt, or add water, or add more vegetables, or something to make it more palatable. But what about if it's something quite big? And so I was reading some things online, and there was a very nice website where somebody had done a little blog on regrets, and he literally written about how, you know, in his life he didn't really have a lot of things to regret, but his relationship with his father was not that great. And, you know, his father was now into his 80s, and he was looking after him, but still he didn't say anything much with the dad, because you know how it is when people get older, sometimes it's difficult to say things to them, isn't it? And he said he always wished that he'd said something to try and repair their relationship. And so he thought about it, but he didn't do anything. But he had an opportunity to do something until one day his father just kind of, you know, he's in his 80s and he just died one day. You know, he could easily die of illness or anything. And suddenly he realized, it was only at that point that he realized that he didn't actually make amends with his father, that he didn't say anything. And so the chance to repair that relationship had gone. And he kind of, so this website is actually quite positive in that he realized that that was not the only thing in life, and that maybe many people do this. Many people have maybe, you know, an aspect of a relationship or an aspect of how they live their life, which is not how they want it to be. And so he kind of was really setting up like a support network online. And, you know, maybe I can mention that at the end. So I think that if you do recognize that you have got some regrets in your life, and I think most people do, and most people have maybe regrets. Well, I recognize that it's usually something I haven't done, or something I've done as an adult, because you forget things as a child, don't you? You kind of do things or you don't do things, and I think that there are probably a couple of different ways we can approach the whole topic of regret. I know that for some people, regret is quite a big thing, and what I would say is, you know, it's really worth looking online and maybe reading positive things that will help you to think about how not to get stuck in regrets. And the things that I would find most helpful are positive quotes and ways of seeing life. And the best one I've come across is that literally anything, well, there are probably 3 or 4 things that I think are really good. And I think the first thing is, if you could just really accept yourself as you are, you won't regret things. If you can really accept yourself, your personality, who you are within your family, within your work context, within the community you live in, just accept that you are where you are, then that's a good starting point to moving forwards and letting go of regrets. And I think the other thing that I found very, very meaningful was that anything you do in life is literally just an experience. And if you do it wrong now, well, that's okay. You can notice that it wasn't how you wanted to do it, and you can say, okay, well, next time I'll do it differently. Or you can make another decision that will mean that you can learn something from this situation and do it differently. I think it's very, very easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh my goodness, I did that wrong. That is such a big failure on my part. That's such a big, you know, enormous, terrible thing for me to do. And then you get into the trap of not being able to move beyond that. So what you do is you don't forgive yourself, you blame yourself. And that's probably the most active thing we do, is we blame ourselves. And what happens when you blame yourself? You get stuck. Have you noticed that? If you blame yourself, you can get stuck. And I think some people have a character where they blame themselves and they get stuck and they stay stuck. And it's something that maybe people have learnt to do from childhood. And I think that there are solutions to that. And I'd like to go through those actually in one of our slides. And then I think there are other people who will do things and they'll make a mistake and then they'll forgive themselves and they'll carry on, pick themselves up, carry on with life, and then make another mistake and another one. But somehow things just don't bother them, you know. And so they have a very different kind of approach to life and how they judge themselves. But I think in this talk, we can look at the situation where a regret is something you get stuck in, and it could be a regret for something you've done, or it could be regret for something you haven't done. But I think we have to be able to empower ourselves to move on. Does that make sense to you? Have to be able to do that. So let's go on to the next slide. The next slide. So it's just a few words, and I've tried to make them in different colours. I hope you appreciate the colour scheme of my slides. So blue and purple, because I feel like the colours blue and purple are all related to the way we think. And to live life without regrets doesn't mean you never make a mistake. That's true, isn't it? Everybody makes mistakes. I don't think I know anyone who doesn't make mistakes. I know people who forgive themselves quickly. I know people who generally do really good things and don't do anything really negative. But everybody makes some mistake. It could be anything. It could be something minor. It could be not shaking someone's hand. It could be shaking someone's hand when you shouldn't. It could be, you know, smiling. It could be not smiling. There are so many degrees and grades of things that we can do that could be a mistake. So I think most people do make certain mistakes in our lives, and that's how we learn, actually. And I think living without regret doesn't mean you never fail. So you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And the word failure, I think when I was younger, I never wanted to fail in anything. I didn't want to fail in my school exams. I didn't want to fail in my work that I did. I didn't want to fail in anything I was doing, because I think when you're young, you're quite optimistic and you want to set yourself goals and achieve them, right? But then when you become an adult, you realize that life is not all about success after success after success. And if you compare yourself to others, you soon realize that we're all at different levels of achieving in different parts of our lives. And so I would say that one of the things that will help us to live without a regret is not to compare yourself to other people, and to have realistic aims and objectives for yourself. And then you won't judge yourself so badly. You won't judge yourself so negatively. And that leads on to the third point on the slide, which is that living without a regret really means that, if you can, it's living your life to the full and learning from your experiences. And if we learn from experiences, that's probably the very best we can do. You can live a life that is fairly predictable and straightforward and not make any major mistakes. But then at the end of the life, you might look back and think, am I a bit bored? You know, why didn't I do something interesting or exciting in my life? As soon as you have the thought that you want to do something different, something that would be a bit challenging, you know, the chance of not making it successful first time is going to be high. So I think we do have to take some courage in our hands and attempt to do things that we wouldn't normally think about doing. And, you know, we all have different kinds of life experiences. Some people are adventurous from a very young age. They go off and do so many new things. Even in their teenage years, they've traveled throughout Europe or gone off on different adventures in different parts of the world. And then other people have lived a much more sort of calm, sheltered, more kind of building block kind of life, where you're building up, the strengths in your life, the kind of things you can, that will be helpful for you in the future. And they're both good things, and when you do them, are going to depend on your situation in life, really, aren't they? And on your personality, and really how you feel inside. But I think that anything, once we start to challenge ourselves to do something outside the normal, accepted, kind of standard way of doing things, we are going to end up making some mistakes. Sometimes we're going to end up doing a job we didn't like to do, that we didn't think was fitting our values or wasn't fulfilling. Sometimes you're going to be in a relationship that's not healthy. So it could be any kind of relationship. It could be a work relationship. It could be a home relationship. It could be a friendship. Anything can happen. And I think the biggest thing that we can do, because we don't always have a huge choice in what comes to us in our lives, but if we can turn what is in our lives into a positive right now, then we can see more opportunities than we can see losses. So, for example, you might think, oh, I'm a bit bored of doing this job now, but if you can find a new way of doing that job, or supporting someone else to do something, or studying something different, or becoming a specialist in one aspect and making a bigger thing out of it, or do you know what I'm trying to say to you? If you can find an angle that would really grab your interest, then you will be able to turn that situation into something positive instead of something that's a bit disappointing or lacking, fulfillment, or, frustrating or making you unhappy. So let's move on to the next slide. But before I do that, have you noticed any word that I've put on this slide, which was also on the past slide, which I haven't really said anything much about? Yeah, change. So the word's at the bottom of the slide, right? And the word is change, because it's actually, when we feel regret, one of the things we want to do is change. Is that okay? Does everyone feel it sounds like a reasonable thing? So here we go. Letting go of regret. First of all, when sometimes people get into a situation of regretting something in a really big way. So they might want to pretend it never happened. That's called denial. Or they may want to repress it, so push it out of their conscious mind. And again, it's about pretending it didn't really happen, or that they didn't really experience that. But to really let go of regret, I think, do you know what I mean by that? Do you know sometimes in life a decision comes your way and you think, oh, that was completely the opposite of what I should have done, or something like that? Have you ever had that feeling? I'll give you an example for me, because I can remember it even now. And it's something so simple, you'll probably think it's really funny that I can still remember it. But when I was about 9 or 10, and in those days, in schools, you could go swimming, and the whole class would go swimming. And I think that the place where I was, usually you would go for swimming lessons for 2 years running before they would stop them. So, you know, you're at a good age, 8, 9, 10, you learn a few skills, you learn something practical, and so swimming was quite a nice thing to do. So I actually did learn how to swim, but I think it must have taken me a whole year to learn how to swim. You know, it's amazing how long these things take, isn't it? And no matter how much training there is, it's literally just 40 minutes in the pool, isn't it? And then you're out again. And I think then the second year we were expecting to all be able to go and try our hand at swimming again and do a little bit more. But what happened was they announced that we couldn't all have swimming anymore, and you could only go swimming because they didn't have the right kind of coaches or sufficient safety officers. So you could only go swimming if you could already swim the whole width of a pool. And so we were practicing in the children's pool, but you had to be able to swim across the adult pool, which I'd never actually done. So, you know, I and a few others, we went along to say, you know, we'd like to have a go at swimming and seeing if we can go, you know, whether we're fit enough to be able to swim and go for swimming rather than something else, you know, from physical education. And there was only, out of the whole class, there were only 2 girls, so myself and another girl, and there were a few boys. So the boys went off and they were all going off and jumping in and swimming across, and obviously they were confident enough, and if they could swim all the way across, they were told they can come and join the swimming lessons the next year, and if they couldn't, then they were told, I'm sorry, I think you know, you wouldn't be safe in the pool without another instructor, so you know, we'll have to put it off. So when it came to the girls, there were only 2 of us, and they instructed us that we had to swim from one end to the other. And the girl the other girl went ahead of me, and I had to wait a little bit until she'd got like a quarter of the way through the pool, and then I was told, now you go. So there I went off swimming. I could actually swim at that time, which is great. And something happened. When we reached the middle of the pool, I could see she put her foot down on the line in the middle, and then she carried on. So me being a bit impressionable at that age, I thought, oh, I didn't realize we had to touch the line when we get to the middle. So when I got to the middle, I touched the line as well. I thought, I did that well, you know, and carried on swimming. And then I can smile now, but when we got to the end there, we were told, I'm really sorry, you won't be able to go swimming next year because you didn't swim the whole width without, you touch the bottom of the pool in the middle. And I was like dumbfounded. And I said, no, I thought you had to touch in the middle. And they said, no, but anyway, there's no second chances. We only have time for this one trial and you can't go swimming. So then, so disappointed. You can imagine, can't you, 8, 9, whatever age you are. And I remember saying to the girl, I thought, that we were supposed to touch. She said, I can't remember what she said, but she said, I would have been much more comfortable if I could have jumped in. I don't like diving in. And because I because she dived into the pool. And so because she did that, she felt a bit flustered, and that's why she put her foot down in the middle. And I said, yeah, I can jump in as well. But we didn't have a chance to show what we could do because we'd made that one mistake. So that was a big regret. And, you know, obviously I didn't remember it every day, but every now and again I'd think, oh, if only I hadn't made that mistake at school, I could have been a really good swimmer, you know. But anyway, I'm sure I'll have to forget it now. But do you know what I mean by there are little things in your life that make you think, because at that time I really thought it was going to be really important that I could swim, because you could save people's lives, you could, I don't know, you could develop your skills in a different way, you can go swimming in the sea, you could do so much more. And it felt really big and important. But actually, when you look at whole life, it's a nice thing to do, but maybe it's not like life-threatening, is it? It might be life-threatening, but it isn't at the moment. I might not be saying this if, you know, we suddenly get flooded or something like that. But then, you know, you accept where you are at in life and you think, I learned something else. I will have learned something else. I will have gone to other physical education classes. Maybe I learned netball. Maybe I would never have been able to play netball or something else, hockey or tennis. So opportunities are, you know, sort of a bit relative. And I think, and although it seems like I'm talking about something a little bit facetious, I think sometimes we make something in our life such a big thing, it's probably not that hugely important, but we've made it seem like a big important thing. And that's why we get stuck with that regret. And I would say that we need to move on. And what we need to do is become aware that I felt that regret, accept it, and then learn something from it. And when it comes to things in life, one of the things we have to do is forgive ourselves. We just have to deeply forgive ourselves. Okay, I made that mistake at that time, that I didn't speak up, or I followed other people, or I didn't think for myself, or, you know, whatever it was. But I have to forgive myself. And if I can really forgive myself, I can see that was experience, and I will have learned, I'm stronger for having had that experience. And then I've got to move on. And something I've found is that if you do get stuck in regretting something, you have to do something really nice for yourself, something positive. It could be giving yourself a treat. It could be giving yourself a chance to do something else that you've always wanted to do, you know. And I think later on in my life, I will have done more things because I missed out when I was 9, you know. I will have said, I want to do this. You know, I remember when I went to university, there was something I wanted to do. And one of my closest friends said, no, you can't do that. That's too dangerous. You know, what if you don't come back down? You know, what if you get stuck in the air? It was just really, really funny kinds of worries that she had. And I had to brush it all aside and say, no, I'm definitely going to do this. And I went ahead and did this thing that not everybody does. And I did, and I probably, maybe I wouldn't have done it if I had, you know, if it's because I learned something from my childhood that you have to take an opportunity, that I went on to do something I really wanted to do, which was do a parachute jump. I was so pleased I did it. We raised some money for charity, and I had the experience of being in a plane and jumping out, and then being able to see what everything looks like when you're just suspended in the middle of the air, just up there on your own. Nothing troubling you, no sound, so nice. And, you know, I remembered that when I started meditating as well, because when I first started meditating, I remembered that experience, and I thought, that's where I want to be when I meditate. I want to be in that beautiful silence, and I want to have no sound, and I want to be free, just completely free on my own. So you can give yourself that experience too. And what helped me was not only that parachute jump, that's just a trigger, but what helped me was looking at the knowledge of meditation and thinking, I've got to experiment. I've got to experiment with all the ideas, especially the ideas I find most fascinating. And that's what I've tried to do in my spiritual life, is I've tried to experiment with ideas rather than get too stuck, because it's very easy to get stuck in self-blame, think that you're not doing things well enough, and to think that you should be doing better. Because there's just that tendency from childhood, isn't there? You could be doing better. You should do this. You should do that. So living without regret, I take us on to the last page. This is like a quote from someone who's lived their life, and they're literally just saying, one day you'll see that your regrets are nothing. They're like nothing. The real value in your experience is how you answer that regret. So if you did any harm, if you did something that caused someone else harm, make amends. Do something to make it better, or change it for that other person, or do something that they would like or need. So make some amends, because again, that will straight away help you to start getting over that feeling of regret and self-blame. If you didn't do something, do it now, or do something that will give you a similar reward. So if there are things you've missed out on in life for any reason, situation, only one person could do it and not everybody could do it, or whatever it is, do something else that would make you feel, okay, now I've given myself an opportunity. And see your feeling of regret not as a thing to get stuck on, but as an opportunity to create something new. And if you can do that, thinking about creating things which are based on my positive experiences of life or myself, or in meditation, I can create positive experiences, or I can do positive things, and positive things give you a positive experience back, don't they? And so if you do certain positive things, you will have more opportunities to do something for you. That's been my experience of life. The more positive things you do, the more opportunities open up. People don't really tell you that, but it's a sort of reality even in the workplace. Not always true, but often true. But certainly it's a reality in your day-to-day life. And I think finally, for me, one of the key qualities of being able to do something positive for yourself is to believe in yourself, really believe in yourself. Don't let experiences from the past get you down. The real wisdom of living without regret is to do with awareness, acceptance, and learning. And because regret is hard for us to avoid, what we can do is feel it, don't avoid it, but don't stay stuck in it, but really reframe it. So forgive yourself, make amends, and then remind yourself that it is just an experience. If I've done something and it didn't turn out well, if I cook something with too much salt, then next time I know, don't put too much salt in it. If I cook something with too much chili, I know next time, I need half the amount of chili or whatever it is. But if I didn't do it, I wouldn't know to what level I can handle chili. Do you know what I mean? So I think life is a bit like that. sometimes we have to take a few risks, a few chances to do it differently. One of the things that with the reminder at the beginning of the talk that it's World Suicide kind of Remembrance Day, so people who don't feel very good about things and feel that they have to do something to harm themselves. And actually, it's not necessary to take things to that extent. If you can just give yourself a chance to pick yourself up, there are positive things. There are positive things in most people's lives, and sometimes it's just about being able to see things differently, being able to see the positives. And here are a couple of self-care tips that I think anybody could benefit from. One is have a routine that will get you, even if you don't have, say, if you don't have a job, perhaps somebody feels down because they don't have a job, well, have a good routine. Do something that's going to counter the feeling that I don't have a job, it means I'm not useful, or I don't have anything to create, or I don't have, anything to look forward to. Just have a good routine that gets you up, gets you out of the house, gets you involved in doing something or being with others, and lets you have some quiet time to yourself. I mean, that's the sort of thing I can say to someone who's really feeling a bit down in the dumps, about something. But for most people, I think living without regret is whenever we do good things, anything, whether we do good actions, good things for other people, we help a charity, we do positive thoughts, we hold a positive place for someone else. All of those things are always going to come back in a positive way. They will create something positive inside us, and they help to make where you live a little bit better, or where you work a little bit better. It's going to be appreciated. Someone's going to appreciate it somewhere. So do that, and do something you enjoy too. I would like to show you my final slide, but before I do that, I have a quote, and I would also like to ask if you have any questions. I think I've talked quite a bit, so if you have any questions, this is the opportunity. Anyone want to ask it? And while we get a mic so that we can all hear you, or you can just shout it out. There's a mic here. I don't know if it's working, but there's one here. There. Not that one? Okay. So let me show you the next slide. And so on this slide, can you read those slides? Those quotes on the slide? These are three of my favorite quotes from a website I found, which is called, can you see what the website's called? Human Growth Lab. So that's got three important words in it. One is human. Second is growth, because we have to grow. And the lab, third is lab, which is experiment, try things out. Okay, so would you like to ask your question?
Yes. How can you make amends with somebody or people when they're not ready to accept the amends?
Okay, yeah. So how can you make amends when someone is not ready to accept? Actually, you can't make amends with them at that point in time. And what I tend to do is don't try to get them to talk to you, because probably that won't work. But what I would do is I use what I've learned in meditation. And so I will go to my quietest place and I will send them some very gentle, positive thoughts. We often call it sending people good wishes. So send them some positive thoughts for their highest good, for my highest good, or just that they will feel better, or whatever it is, and wait until they're ready. And until they're ready, I can't do anything to make them change their mind, usually, because usually the sort of person you can't make amends to usually thinks they're right, and whatever you did was so terrible, so terribly awful, that you can't ever be forgiven in their minds about it. That's usually how they operate, isn't it? And but it could be something really little, like you took their pencil, and that could be upsetting them for weeks and months and years. Do you know what I mean? It could be minor things. So what I would do is understand that that's where that person's coming from, that's where their intellect is coming from, and I'm going to step back and I'm going to just send them good wishes, not get too involved, and just hope for the learning to happen. Because I have to learn and move on, and I have to still create what I need to create. But at some point, hopefully they'll learn too. I may not be a witness to it, but I can send them the most positive thoughts possible. And what I don't want to do is get caught up in the negativity that they might be spinning in their minds. And I think many times when I've met people through meditation talks and things like that, they have somebody in their life who, you know, genuinely thinks it's their life's job to make that person feel bad about themselves. So sometimes, you know, I'm sort of laughing a little bit, but sometimes there are people in our lives who will never tell us we're doing okay, and we have to detach and learn not to get caught up in their story. It's literally like their story. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
I think we have one online question from online.
Yeah.
And it says, what if you make mistakes and not learn from it?
What if you
make mistakes and not learn from it?
And not learn from it. Okay. Well, okay, that's a good question. Well, if you make mistakes and you don't learn from it, that could be so many different contexts. But I would say that maybe you don't want to learn something from it, or maybe it's not possible to learn something from it. So maybe what you would need is a bit of time to step back and be very peaceful. Don't do the same thing again, because you're obviously making mistakes. That means that something is not very clear to you. Maybe there's something you haven't learned, or some information that's missing for you, or maybe it's not possible for you to do this thing. Sometimes we don't know something's not possible, so we keep trying, and it's not possible, you know. So I think you have two methods. One is if you find out exactly what you should do. So, for example, if you're an athlete and you want to try and jump, a few inches more than your highest hurdle, like, I don't know how high do people jump, but let's say you want to jump, over higher and higher chairs. So rather than keep trying to jump and fall over, maybe you'll learn a different technique, and then when you've learnt another technique, then go and jump over that hurdle. So that could be one method of dealing with a situation where you keep making mistakes. Learn something different. Or the other is perhaps there isn't a method of sorting that out, and if that's so, then learn what you can do and what you can't do. So that would be I think those would be the simplest ways to deal with that situation. And I think for me, things like passing exams are a really straightforward example, because there are some topics you know that if you study enough, you'll pass, okay? So if you took an exam like maths and you didn't pass, and then if you learn a bit more maths and learn a bit more, in terms of techniques, at some point you'll pass that exam. However, if you know that maths is your, worst topic, and you actually just cannot get your brain to work around that, then, learn what you can and stand back and don't try that exam. And I think I could, if I have 1 minute, I can just share that recently somebody sent me a video. I think it's a famous YouTuber who was talking about a new invention, which is a boat that can fly. I don't know if you've seen it, but in America, a team have designed a boat that literally lifts off the water and flies. And the person who actually spearheaded that was a female scientist from India. And she actually failed her exams when she was at college, and then she decided to keep applying for jobs until she found something she could do. Then she found a topic she was very interested in, and then she learnt more and more and got her PhD, etc. And now she's created a new design, and she has a team of scientists and other people all working with her in America. So, I mean, that's a kind of great story, and it's a real story, so anybody can try and Google it and find it online. But she didn't pass her exams because perhaps she didn't have the right information or the right motivation to learn from that particular situation, didn't have enough in it for her to learn. But when she got to a point in her life where she had to do something, then she was able to decide what direction she wanted to go in. So I hope that I think to me that illustrates that sometimes it's not that we're just making mistakes. Perhaps we haven't found the right thing to do. So, don't give up. Okay, so that's the end of the questions from online?
Thank you. And
okay,
we can finish with short meditation.
Okay, so we're going to bring our thoughts to an end, to a conclusion, with a meditation. And thank you for your interest and engagement, everyone. And I think just for the last few moments, if you'd like to sit comfortably, and you could be sitting on a chair or you could be sitting on the floor, what I would suggest is don't close your eyes, but try and think of yourself as a very peaceful being. And here in Raja Yoga, we think about ourselves as being beings of peace, and that's what you can do right now, is just turn your thoughts towards being a very peaceful being, and allow any thoughts that are in your mind just to leave your mind. And just let your thoughts focus on being quiet, on being peaceful, and being free. I'm reminded of how I feel when I give myself time just to relax and be at peace. I don't let the thoughts of the day or of anything intrude on my mind. Instead, I appreciate the natural silence and the natural peace that exists within me and which I can connect to more often This is the peace that allows me to learn and to grow. And this is the peace that allows me to become free. So just enjoy for another moment being at peace, being free. And just come back to that experience whenever you need to. And for now, we'll just come back to the room and I'll say thank you and Om Shanti.
Thank you, sister, for the wonderful talk and all the tools and tips given. There'll be a few announcements for the next week. Next week, it's the same time, same place, and the topic is concise, clear, and positive. And also, we do have a positive thinking course this Saturday, 16th of September, which is the in-house, and the timing for that is 2 to 4 p.m. Saturday. And the product of the week is The Spiritual Mind, A Journey into Awareness. This book is available in the shop, so you can browse through on your way out. So once again, thank you for joining us and have a safe journey back home. Thank you.